the physicalness all around you is not 3D. What is the difference between 3D and 5D? Linear time. There are 5 different configurations of present time. The universe does not understand English, French, and Spanish, only understands vibration. This is the change we're in. This sense of buoyancy, 5th dimension. That's where we're going. There's something called the 4th ray of creation. The creator gods, little g, the archangelics, began to create without the light of the creator. In 1987, there was something called the Harmonic Convergence. But the real piece was 2012. When it came, Metatron stepped forth and basically said there will never be another child born into the 3rd dimension. You realign the 6th chakra, the 7th chakra, and the pineal center into something called the Eye of Horus to see into other realms of consciousness. You hear people talking about 3rd dimension, 5th dimension. What happened to the 4th dimension? We're always in cycles. And this cycle we've been in for a long time. And many times cycles overlap cycles. And we're at one of those points where we've got 27,000 year cycles, 12,000 year cycles, 80 year cycles. They're all coexisting right in this one point. And one of the things that is really clear, and we'll talk about throughout this conversation, is the experience that we've been playing has come to an end. The experience of being separated from the creator has come to an end. And meaning that energy that we create for ourselves, when we say simple things like, I am angry, I am upset, I am jealous, I am resentful. See, the minute you say, I am, that alignment with the creator and I are one, that sense of God, all that is, supreme being, whatever you label that sense of joy and passion we all are moving to. But the minute you say, I am lack, I'm angry, I'm resentful, you literally disconnect from love. And you basically move away from love. And everybody knows this feeling because the heart, and we'll talk about this, thoughts are electrical, emotions are magnetic. Very important piece of information. But what happens is the minute you move away from joy, excitement, passion, friendship, all of those things that bring about a smile, you push love out of the heart center. And then the heart and the thought begins to close down. And you say, I'm really angry. And you amplify the emotion and you get this erratic vibration. See, love, joy, peace, wonderfulness, you, my friend, I like you, is this smooth harmonic flow. And so a lot of times, in simple terms, we get pushed out. But this ability to continue to be, I am angry, resentful, jealous, is actually coming to an end.
Can you tell us about stepping into a game that we've never really understood the rules of? What do you mean by that?
So have you ever played a game and you didn't know the rules? And at the beginning, you might be somewhat lucky and you might have some success, but just over a very short period of time, depending on the game, you begin to fall apart. You begin to not accomplish what you set out to do. And see, in this game that we're playing, this game of 3rd dimension, it is useful to understand that that dimensions are kind of stratas, they're layers, and every layer has consciousness, has rules, has structures. So this game of 3D, we'll call it, and we'll define it as we go on, has rules and structures. And the first part of that is to understand that the physicalness all around you is not 3D. The physicalness is the creation of form that, and we'll talk more about this in a moment, that we, the physical beings, not the non-physical beings, have created this physical form. And in that context, the tree, the chair, the house you're sitting in, physical form, not 3D. So in a few minutes, we'll talk about 5D also. The same earth, the same chair, the same tree, 5D. So what is the difference between 3D and 5D? So let's do this. So in this 3D game, some of the rules are things that you don't even pay attention to. Linear time, one of the most conditional structures that we experience. And you say to people, look at your watch, is there any difference in time? 90% of the people, 99% of people will say, oh no, this is time. But in fact, there are 5 different configurations of present time when you begin to play in present time.
What are those
5.
configurations? Sorry, tell us more about those.
Sure. So let's deal with linear time. Linear time first is this construction that basically we all have lived by in third dimension. And that is, you have a belief that what is time? Past, present, future, then you die. Anybody want to argue with that? Well, no. Well, except those that begin to understand it. Mm-hmm. So there's present time so that linearness plays out in one truth in particular. You believe that the past is fixed. You can't change the past. Well, past happened. I had this experience. Time's moved on. I can't change it. That is incorrect. The past is very changeable, but not from the standpoint of, let me wave my magic wand and the event goes away. It's not about the event. It's about how you live the past every moment of your life moving forward from that past present time moment. So let me see. So that's one piece. Let me come back. There's other pieces we'll talk about in a second. There's circular time. There's simultaneous time. There's something that doesn't have a good label, but we're going to call it the 4th aspect of time. We'll touch on that as we go on. And then there's an aspect of present time that is unexplainable because the rational mind can only knows what it knows, and it doesn't know what it doesn't know. And it has a tendency to argue for its belief system. So third dimension, linear time. Third dimension is conditional. There is absolutely nothing that is unconditional in third dimension. Now,
even unconditional love? Like I've heard you say, yeah.
Oh, so wow, what is this guy coming from? I've never heard these things before. Many people will say, rightfully so, do you know the rules of the game? Conditionality. Another big piece is duality. Right, wrong, good, bad, should, shouldn't. We live our lives in those judgments, opinions, responses. So let's just decide, and we'll get into that those are some of the aspects of the rules. And then there's another big piece of the game that is mom, dad, teacher, minister. Right? Mom, dad, teacher, minister. Now let's start with saying they love you and they all have your best interest in mind. Nobody's out trying to do it to you. So we'll remove that. But what we do is we come into the body and we give up seniority immediately because we're playing a new game and mom, dad, teacher, minister have the answers. But what we've learned to do is basically they say, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. We talk to those, we don't talk to these. We eat this kind of food, we don't eat that kind of food. We go to these schools, we hang out with those. And pretty soon there's that conditionality. And well, I love my mom, dad, teacher, minister, so I'm assuming they're driving me in the right path. And then what we do is we basically do what they say. And so it's like, I have your best interests in mind, do what I say. And so we, as little beings, basically came here to play the game. So we immediately begin to give up seniority and play the rules as they are spelled out for us by the mom, dad, teacher, minister. Right, wrong, good. And now if you look in the eyes of a little 6-month-old, 1-year-old, 18-month-old, you see this passion, this, it's like, wow, they are so amazing. But then come back at 2 years old, come back at 3 years old. And that glint, that passion, that deepness has been dulled out. And we basically say, mom, dad, teacher, minister know what they're doing. And so we're going to follow them. And quite often we begin to follow the rules and structures that have been provided for us. And quite often we move away from that internal guidance system that sits right in the heart, that we all know. That space where somewhere in your life, everybody said, let's do this. And something right here went, I don't think so. This doesn't feel right. And if you went and did it, afterwards you said, that was so stupid. I knew I should not have done that. And the flip side of that is you stand on the edge of a cliff and you say, I've got to jump, I've got to fly. And everybody goes, no, you're going to crash. And if you listen to them, you simply give up your passion and step back. Now, see, this is an interesting part because there's a vibration. The vibration is identical. Excitement and fear is an identical vibration. One steps forward into joy, passion, opportunity, excitement. The other steps back into uncertainty, doubt, and concern and fear. Identical vibration. One says yes, and the other goes, no, I can't do that. And so there's a whole process where we start to, as little kids, go to follow our passion, and then we get told, no, don't, stop making up those stories, stop lying, stop. And a lot of that is all of those psychic abilities, those spiritual abilities that we all have, which is we could run out a list of about 18 of them, not one or two. But what happens is stop making up those stories. There's no angel sitting at the table where you're playing tea. Time to grow up. And then we give up our blanket, we give up our little doll, and we begin to do what mom, dad, teacher, minister tell us. And quite often that experience doesn't feel good, but I don't want to upset, I don't want to get in trouble. And so you begin to condition, there's that word, conditionality, yourself to others. And this is in a way where that don't put false idols in front of yourself. Well, wait, we're talking about mom, dad, teacher, minister. They love me. But their truth may not be, and very likely is not exactly your truth. Their path is not your path.
Is understanding the nature of the rules on the game board necessary for us then to be able to step off the game board? Is that the progression there?
Excellent. Absolutely. So let's just leave those linear time, conditionality, duality, separation as part of the games. Now, this is a fabulous game that we've been playing, but we get so consumed with I'm not okay, I don't deserve, I'm not doing it right, I'm stupid. We wind up collecting a lot of judgments because we have tried to follow our joy at some point and got told, no, don't do that. That's wrong. What's wrong with you? We've gotten scolded, we've gotten punished, we've gotten hit, and all of a sudden we bring ourselves into an agreement, a huge word, a major word, agreement. I'm going to be in agreement with the rules and games of the third dimension. The other one is, if you want to succeed, you have to go there. You have to follow the rules. You have to do this right. You have to fit in. You have to ask for permission. See, there's that word permission is one of your most powerful tools, but we give up seniority to everybody else's permission. We simply are told, you don't have permission. You can't do that. You have to stay in. Do what I say. Can you see how the conditionality begins to play in the game? And then you did that thing bad. You should be embarrassed. You should be guilty. How dare you do that? Shame on you. Oh my gosh. All those words start to come into the game. Does that sound like love? Does that sound like joy? Let me help you out. Let's see if we can make you successful. No. And so all of a sudden I'm hedging. Now I go and do something and I'm doing it because I want to see how it works, but it's clearly wrong and I get punished. I get yelled at. I get an F in school. I get fill in the blank. And then pretty soon I'm not okay. And what happens is I go into guilt. Anybody ever have that experience, guilt? What happens is I can only hold guilt for so long and be pouting and be uncomfortable. It's not what I want. So here's where we create the beginning of a challenge. We basically take this guilt and say, I can't deal with this. So I'm going to put it over here and I'm just going to let it be over there. And it still catches your attention. You'd go do something similar to what you did that was so bad. And it's like, oh no, I'm doing this again. So then you say, well, I don't like this at all. I keep getting pulled into it. So here's where we create the beginning of the personality. I don't like this thing that I'm guilty for, so I'm going to make a deal with it. If you don't come out and embarrass me and bite me in the butt again, I will never go over there where I did that thing that I got yelled at. And so we then take this and we kind of stuff it back here in the backpack and we make an agreement with it. Here's your past beginning to come to create your future. I will never go over there again. I won't do this again. I won't think those thoughts again because I got in trouble because I didn't know the rules to the game. And so I got this thing in the backpack. But then here comes another piece of the puzzle, this law of attraction. Now, everybody knows the law of attraction. Do you know what it is? Absolutely, I know what it is. No, you don't. Because it's made so simple, and it is so simple, it's hard to understand one component. What you put your attention on, the universe that adores you, I will not second guess you because you're the creator being, and I will provide for you exactly what you ask for. Does that sound like the law of attraction we've heard? For the most part. But see, the universe does not understand English, French, and Spanish. The universe only understands vibration. And so here I've got this guilt, this blame, I'm ashamed of myself, I'm stupid, I never do things right, what's wrong with me? Let's just put it in that category. And I put it back here so I don't have to notice it. But did you solve it? Did you turn it off? Or is it sitting back there defining your personality? That space where how do you live? Excitement, joy, passion, I'm moving forward? Or I'm not sure, let me step back so they don't get upset with me. Am I constructing a picture that is not the picture that most people pay attention to? Rules of the game.
Yo! Inspired Soul, just taking out a quick sec to thank all of you that are subscribed to the podcast. Everything you see around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to this channel. Thank you so much for your incredible love and support, championing wisdom, positivity, love like this episode around the world through your support. To all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the subscribe button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. Please take a moment, click subscribe, click the bell notification icon. 2 episodes like this coming out every week. It helps with everything we're doing, as I said before. Thank you so much in advance for your love and support. Back to Jim in today's episode. It's interesting as well because at this particular juncture, it becomes very clear as to why healing is so important in terms of moving forward towards your passions. Because I think oftentimes people think they live in 2 very separate sort of camps, the past versus the future. But at this particular juncture, it's like you can see the intertwined, I'm not saying mesh, but yeah.
Exactly. So here's that linear timepiece that pumps up to answer your question. Past, present, future, and you move and then you die. Well, the past is fixed. I did this. I have an example. I at 5 years old, I remember this very vividly. I liked that candy bar that was right there in the store. And I just reached over and unwrapped it and started biting. And oh my gosh, you're stealing. Don't you know you're not supposed to do this? And the owner yells, my mother yells, my mother's now embarrassed, so she's got to punish me. We all know that. And so, was I stealing a candy? No, I didn't even know the difference. It was just a candy bar. But here's the piece. So let's say that you, me, everybody stole that candy bar, and there's a sense of guilt. So first, the past has two parts to it. One is the event. Did we steal the candy bar? Did we eat the candy bar? Yes, unquestionably, that was the event. But what happens is in that present time moment, because you see, there is only this present time moment. There's only now. There is no past. There's only now. But what happens is I had a past present time moment and I had that candy bar issue. And you say to me for whatever reason, well, are you going to steal another candy bar? Did you ever do something that you're guilty for? And here I am at my age and I say, oh yeah, I stole this candy bar. I'm really guilty about it. Oh, and you've been guilty about it since you've been 5 years old? Well, yeah. Okay, so here's the piece that unravels your past. The event occurred, but right here in present time, when we say candy bar, the feeling of guilt comes up. Right here, does that vibration of guilt serve you in any manner at all for a 5-year-old act? No. So what if you could recognize that the past has two parts to it? And right here, we're going to simply look at the past event, candy bar, without pulling the emotion from the past into the moment. I'm going to just choose to not be guilty in the moment. And then I'm going to ask myself, does that event have any value to me? Is it likely I'm going to steal a candy bar? Is it likely I'm going to steal anything? And the answer is no. So what if I could give you just the simplest set of tools that at that moment, that guilt is dissolved? Gone. I mean, no question about it. Do you need to carry this guilt is the question. And if you could just simply in present time realize it has no value to me, I can let it go. Let's just assume for the moment that that works. And you assume, and you also understand that the universe responds to your vibrations. And you have a whole lot of, I didn't do it right in my backpack. Would it be useful in that moment to reconfigure and understand the rules of the game a little differently and be able to simply start to remove all the guilt, blame, I'm not okay, I did it wrong? This is the moment we're going through right now. And I could very verbally give you a set of choices that we'll call tools, choices, that's all they are. And you could apply them and get a tremendous value added, because I've watched it now for years. But what's happening right now is all that backpack is coming to the surface. And this is the change we're in. You can't take your baggage with you on this journey. You can't go home. You can't go back to that alignment that I am wonderful and I am joy and I'm happy and I'm excited and I'm in well-being. See, well-being is the fifth dimension. In the fifth dimension, there is no fear. There is no words like trust don't even come into play. Safety doesn't even come into play. There's nothing unsafe. There's nothing to distrust. It's not even a concept. Well-being, joy, ease, beauty, this sense of buoyancy, fifth dimension. That's where we're going. But you can't take your I'm not okay with you on the journey. And so back to your first question, we're in a transition. And in everybody on the planet, their backpacks are being released. And it's all coming to the surface to be let go of. And so, but many are arguing for their lack, for their security, for their past. Whereas all the people listening to you and I right here are getting more and more passionate about how do I find joy and live in joy, in ease and laughter.
Yeah, I'm finding I can just see this visual image of all of our I'm not okay is just effervescing to the surface. And it really does feel like that's really a lot of what's been going on. Interestingly, letting go of something like guilt, which is the particular example we're using, there's so many of those sort of frequential traps, let's just call it that for need of a better word. But it does serve some fear of, I don't want to do that wrong again. And again, it's very conditional because it's wrong. It's in, and again, it's linear time. I can see very clearly the board, the 3D matrix board laid out in front of me, even in my question. But then, how does one wade its way forward by not to learn from its mistakes?
That's exactly the right. So are you going to go steal the candy bar again? We'll use that as a frame of reference here. And the answer is no. No. In fact, I didn't steal it the first time, but no. So do you need to carry that baggage around as a reference point to know that you're guilty about something? And you're holding it there in order to make sure you never do it again. Or you're holding it there to understand the conditionality, and then I have a choice. But is the choice to steal the candy bar even a choice? Or is the concept and the alignment and the fear and the guilt simply baggage that is unnecessary to hold on to? You're wise enough to look at some of your past as experience, okay? You've had experience. And you can discern, that's a very big word, between am I going to do it again? Is it something that has value for me? Even things you did and they were really clearly incorrect. You were angry, resentful, and you went and you did something intentionally that was bad, let's call it. Here you are now. Did you ultimately learn from that? Do you need to keep carrying it around? It's like somebody who goes to jail and they're completely, they get out of jail. Do they need to carry around that stamp that says, I was in jail once? Are they that same human being that may have created that challenge? The answer is always no. We're not the same human being unless we are relying on the backpack to define our current state of experience.
Hi there, guys. I wanted to take a quick moment just to introduce you to my one-to-one coaching. It's something that I deeply love doing. As you can tell, conscious conversation is such a massive part of my life. And having one-to-one, deep, meaningful conversations with people where I get to show up as your brother or as the coach or as your mentor has been such a gift for me personally and a gift for lots of the people that I have supported on the journey of living a more spiritually empowered, spiritually powered, spiritually aligned life. You don't have to take my word for it. Here's some examples of people all around the world that have experienced profound transformations through this coaching experience.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines. And
he's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing. And Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
In control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate because you won't be disappointed.
Alrighty, so hopefully that's inspiring your evolution onwards and upwards. And if you are so inspired to evolve, you can book in a one-to-one call with me directly at www.amrit.coach/life. And guys, if I can say so myself, I do think this is something quite special. Most people that I see building things online don't really work with people this deeply, this intimately, one-on-one as things start to grow, just because it is so time intensive. And yet I'm so deeply passionate about the transformation that comes from one-to-one coaching that just isn't available anywhere else. It would be my absolute honor and a pleasure to support your spiritual awakening, your spiritual path, your spiritual unfoldment. It is my life's work. I look forward to seeing you in the call. Back to today's podcast. Jim, at the risk of sounding conspiratorial, because I don't necessarily love
Please.
diving into those spaces, but you mentioned, mother, father, teacher, minister, and I just can't help but feel like sometimes are there some things added to our backpack intentionally in order to control, like as control mechanisms?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. But where did they learn what they knew? And who taught them? And so all they're really doing, and all we do, we do the same thing to our kids. We teach what we've learned. And hopefully we've learned a lot of other things in the meantime. And hopefully we've realized my upbringing was such that I don't want to pass that on to my kids. But you have so much in that backpack, in a manner of speaking, that says this is how raising kids work based on my history. And we wind up repeating many of the things that we don't want to repeat because we're very unconscious. We say, don't bite me in the butt again. I'm going to put you back here in the backpack. And if I don't go over there, you don't come out and tell me how bad I was.
Yeah, I was looking at things that are... Oh, sorry, I've interrupted. Sorry.
No, good.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at things that are like even larger, like at play, like, the idea of like, I feel uncomfortable talking about this, but maybe I should just double click on it, which is like the idea of original sin. It's like you come in and you're inherently like, you being born is a sin. And I look at that and it's like, that seems like you're pre-programmed with a sense of guilt, and I'm like, you're not okay from the outset with that sort of belief system in your mind, aren't you?
Absolutely. But who created that concept? Where did that come from? Do you think the creator said, I'm going to create this joy and love and beauty and excitement and wonderfulness, and oh, by the way, you're all screwed up. You're coming in here with sin. Do you think the creator set that in motion? Or do you think somebody in this third dimensional game, in the context of power and control and domination, power over, see, that's also one of the third dimensional constructs, power over. And so if I'm going to control you as mom, dad, teacher, minister, as the government, as the church, I need to keep you, and here's one of those other really big words, like permission. I don't give you permission, so am I controlling you? Yes. What's the other one? Imagination. If I can take your imagination away from you, if I can tell you that's silly, that, there is no angel sitting at the little tea table when you're 3 years old playing tea. There's nobody there. Stop making those things up. And I can take your imagination away from you. I can take your permission away from you. And oh, by the way, you were born in original sin. What did you just step into unintentionally? But see, now let's take your original sin question because it's really valid. See, in the third dimension, it's a game board. And on the game board, there are rules and structures, and there's some kind of guide rails. One of those guide rails is doubt. If I can keep you in doubt, who controls your game? If I can keep you in self-judgment, do I have to even put a leash on you, I'm being simple here, to control you? No. It's part of the game board. Now, let me be really clear. I'm not punishing mom, dad, teacher, minister, the religions, the governments. We're playing a game. Now, see, just that statement that we're playing a game is very disruptive to most people's personality.
It'd trigger some people for sure.
Yeah. So I'm not here telling a story for making up a story. I'm simply basically, in a bigger way, even asking you, everybody, what's your story? What is your story? And who constructed your story? And what are the parameters of the rules of your story? And is it even your story? And think back, who told you this is how it is? This is what we do. This is what we eat. This is where we go to school. This is who we hang out with. Did you make up those stories? when you step back into this place where this game is beginning to come to a conclusion, and you begin to recognize, and everybody is having that backpack, whatever it is for each one of us, is being purged. And a lot of it is just being let go of. And an awful lot of what you hold yourself hostage to isn't even your energy. How about your belief system? Whose belief system is it? And more often than not, it's mom, dad, teacher, ministers. Now, we're at a place here where these levels of light that are coming into the game are shining light into the shadows. And all of a sudden, the monster that's been under the bed all these years just turns out to be an old blue towel that nobody ever picked up. And this is important because once you have a new truth, it's very hard to go back to your old truth. Does that make any sense? And so what's happening is that light comes in right now. You're starting to see a lot of new truths, consciously and unconsciously, and all of the I'm not okay that has no relationship to you at all. Many times you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time and something happened and you took on, it's my fault. Well, it was never your fault in the first place. And so this level of light and love that's coming into everybody's experience right now in this transition is dissolving an awful lot of your memory. You're losing a lot of your memory. Now, by definition, you can't even remember what you just lost. But it's not the memory that is really your core pathway. It's the noise of everybody else's truth that never was your truth. Would that make any sense?
It totally does, yeah. Now, from here, Jim, we've talked about the nature of the game board quite at length, and I'm sure we could easily spend multiple podcasts discussing the nuances of the 3D conditioned reality. How do we start stepping off? I think you've started already alluding to certain elements of it, but explicitly, how do we start stepping off the game board?
Present time. Present time. See, one of the other things about the game of third dimension is you have present time, but the nature of present time is reactionary, not choice. In third dimension, an outrageous statement, you do not have choice. What I mean by that is the backpack says, don't do this, and all of a sudden, because you have so much attention on what you don't want, the law of attraction basically says, you wake up in the morning, well, here, I can see what you hold your attention on. Let me give you more in a different size, shape, and color. What we do is we step into our next morning, and on your doorstep is something that's in your backpack reshaped itself. And what we do is we go right into present time, but it's, oh my God, this isn't supposed to be happening. You're in present time, but you're reacting to the past, circular time, bringing your past right in front of you into your future next.
That's really interesting. So what I'm hearing there is that was that second piece that you're talking about with circular time, because I now, having done a handful of these podcasts, interestingly, I've started to come to the awareness that our 3D consciousness is just mapping out linear time for us to be able to have an experience. But it's really just the app that we're running in many ways, touchwood. But if behind the operating system, time actually has a very different construct. And so what you're saying is today we've sort of we wake up, we turn the app on, and the app's got we haven't cleared a cache. The cache is still loaded with all this, right? Sorry, yeah, continue. So there's linear time, circular time, because you also mentioned simultaneous time, the fourth aspect, and the unexplainable nature. But yeah, please continue, yeah, as you were saying.
So let's move into the fourth dimension. See, right now you hear people talking about third dimension, fifth dimension. What happened to the fourth dimension? Well, fourth dimension is a very interesting experience because it is not physical. There is no physicalness in this fourth dimension. It's a thought realm. Now, I'll get to this in a minute. I said thoughts are electrical, emotions are magnetic. We'll get there in a second. But this thought realm is where you dream, daydream, night dream. It's where you create the construct of the thought and the intention, and then bring it into physicalness. Now, but the fourth dimension is very simple in a way. Fourth dimension is present time. Like right now, we're in present time. We're not thinking about breakfast this morning. We're not thinking about tomorrow's, adventure. You and I and everybody right here are right here, present time. In this fourth dimensional aspect of present time, two other things happen that make it quite amazing. You have choice. Here, would you like to have pizza or spaghetti for dinner tonight? You go, I'll have the spaghetti. You go right into present time, you make a decision, and you set it in motion. So fourth dimension, present time, choice, and an interesting word, paradox. Now, this one is really important because what it basically says is what was true a moment ago may not be true anymore. And what was false may be false no more. Now, what it does, it gives you permission to change the game board around. It gives you permission to simply step back and say, well, I ate that candy bar, but I choose no longer to hold this vibration of guilt in my space. I'm in present time where I only exist, and I'm choosing to reconfigure my attention points. There's something called the fourth ray of creation. We can get to that later. But it does something very simple. It just simply, it says, you say, I want this to work this way. And this fourth ray says, okay, I'll put it together and hold it in place until you tell me to take it apart and you no longer need it. Now, let's just call that a concept. But it's more. It's the thing that holds the magnetisms to the thought. It's the thing that holds the passion and the joy to the idea. It's the thing to where I have an idea, I want to jump off this rock, and then you jump. It's the thing that holds everything together, the fourth ray, until you say, I no longer need this. Now, would that be an interesting concept? Just, I no longer need to hold this guilt, this blame, this. What if in fourth dimension, present time, I have choice? I could look at my backpack and say, all these things that happened when I was 8, 10, 15, 20, I'm still guilty about my divorce that happened 25 years ago. I'm still sad because my mother died 15 years ago. Well, let's take that apart. Your mother died 15 years ago. Is being sad right now in this conversation of value to you? And the answer is no. Would you like to say to that fourth ray, I don't need to hold on to this any longer. I can let it go. And that electromagnetic field of the thought and the power of the emotion all of a sudden just simply demagnetizes and is gone. It is that simple. Except simple sometimes is not easy.
Yeah, I can hear the truth. And simple not necessarily being easy echoing around in my head.
So here's where that word paradox comes into play. If I can allow what was true a minute ago to no longer be true for me, what was false no longer to be false for me, right here in present time, the question is, do all these things have value to me? Guilt, blame. And the answer is, if you really just pause right here, I guarantee you that a whole portion of your backpack in this instant, in this conversation, is gone. Because you just made a decision that's like, wow, this is interesting. You mean I can just let it go? Yes. Just like that? Yes. And something inside your brain says, wow, that would be cool. Gone. The memories that are not yours, the events that really are not yours, did you clean the spaghetti off the fork for your dinner last night, goes away. The example is it wasn't clean, but I put it away anyway. Goes away, just simply goes away.
It feels like the fourth ray, a really cool way to work with it could be through intention. It's just what I'm hearing, but I also just want to continue to double click on the time, because you've mentioned linear time, you've discussed circular time now. That was quite, and so what's simultaneous time?
Well, so let's take this fourth dimension piece and make sure we kind of hear it first. So choice, present time right now, and what was true in the past, false in the past, doesn't have to be true or false right this minute. That's a huge place. There's another component. You think from two places. You think from the rational mind. Now, that rational mind is the tool you've been using to take care of me, keep me out of trouble, don't do this. We've given so much responsibility to the rational mind that it really has contradictory messaging in that rational mind space. Do this, don't do this. But we also have that internal guidance system in the heart. And when you start to be able to clear away all of the backpack, the I'm not okay, I don't deserve, they don't like me, I failed, when you realize you're perfectly fine and all those things were events to allow you to choose more wisely in this moment, and that's all. You don't have to carry the guilts and the blames and the other people's opinions. And right now you can say, how am I doing? Without all of that, a giant smile comes across your face. It's like, wow. But see, that smile, that's the space where I'm in love and I am the creator. And this is really good. And I like myself and I'm having fun. And this is great. It's all a smile. And see, in that space, thinking from the heart, there's excitement in the heart space. And the heart begins to vibrate. And my definition, people ask the question, what's the difference between a feeling and an emotion? It's a great question. So, but my answer is not 100% correct, but it is a reference point. Emotions have edges: anger, resentment, jealousy. Feelings, gratitude, excitement, appreciation, grace, peace, no edges. So just a reference point, not a truth. If you're in, I'm really angry, how does that feel? You're in an emotion. So in this space where, again, the vibration of fear and excitement, stepping forward into opportunity, possibility, excitement, stepping back into doubt, uncertainty, fear. You begin to create a different reference point. Now let's just stop for a minute. Different reference point to view your third dimensional game. You can't solve the problem from the problem. You can't find new answers if you only live in the box. And so all we just did, hopefully for a lot of people, without even being conscious of it, just move to a new set of reference points to take a look at the third dimensional game board.
You're on your way from 4D to also describe the fifth dimension. Do you need to describe to us how creation was put together to explain 5D, 4D, 3D, or can you explain 5D and maybe we can ask more about creation folded in on itself?
5D is very simple. Well-being. Well-being. See, we said there's no fear, there's no trust, there's no safety. Those kind of words don't exist. It's simply well-being. And right now, one of the really fun events is we are, you, me, everybody listening, we are changing the game board. And so one of the things that's happened is we've actually, in the last 2 years, kind of leaped over, if you would, created an octave. We leaped over a whole lot of the noise. And so the octave, let's put the octave as part of the fifth dimension, or maybe the doorway to the fifth dimension, or the grand hall that you enter into, making those words up. The octave is all about joy and ease. This word ease is really big. Buoyancy. There's a just sense of, have you ever been in the ocean and it's just kind of that wave raises you up and puts you down? There's a level of lightness, and there's a huge light that comes into this. But you step into this octave, this fifth dimensional space, this joy, and one of the things, it's very sticky. It's like jumping into the water and getting out and you're still wet. The fifth dimension is not going away. The more you find joy and begin to recognize my past is not my truth necessarily, the more the shadows and the fear and the backpack goes away.
Hey there, guys. Just want to ask you really quickly, what are your biggest takeaways from today's conversation with Jim? We're covering a lot of ground here and on a lot of different areas. So I'd love to hear from you. What are your biggest takeaways? And I think Jim will come back on again in the future. So if you've got any questions of Jim yourself, please leave them in the comments below, and I'd be honored to ask them on your behalf. With that, back to Jim in today's episode. Wow. Okay, so something happened in particular. You mentioned the last couple of years, there's a real buoyancy that's kicking in. You also mentioned, I've heard you share that, 2012, 12 minutes after 12, like there's a lot that's been sort of, there's a transition underfoot. We've described the game board quite well. Are we collectively transitioning off the game board? Is that did you like what's going on collectively for us at large at this particular, I want to say like mega time scale, but like, decades or, the last few years and stuff like that. Like,
Sure.
what do you see happening for us at this particular moment in time?
Sure. So the 3D game, when it was both created and experienced, in a way it was an accident, but there are no accidents, and it's here. And one of the things about creation is you never destroy creation once creation is created, but you can be done with it and you can dissolve it. So dissolving it, it's like you and I go have a moment, we go to a movie, we get done with the movie is over, and the event ends. So this 3D game board has had a lot of value. And one of the pieces of the value of the game board was to play a game in physicalness. Now, physicalness is we think it's everything, but physicalness is just like a single drop of water in the universal ocean. It's a little tiny game, but it's a huge game. When the creator beings were playing, they started to explore physicalness. Now, at the beginning, physicalness, now I said a moment ago, fourth dimension is a thought realm. That's physical. Thoughts are physical. They have density to them. But they played and created dimensions, and they played successfully. And then they said, let's make it more dense. I'm trying to paraphrase. And they created another one. They created another one. But one of the things that happened along the way is the creator gods, little g, the ones that the creator said, go and create and play, went out and played. And in that alignment was always in the light. But at some point, some of the beings, as explained by the archangelics, started to get so excited about their personal creation, they began to create without the light of the creator. They had the light, but they didn't use in agreement with the creator. See, when everything works, you and I create with the creator, in the love of the creator, in the joy that we are. Every time you create in joy, things happen. When you create outside of the light of the creator, anger, resentment, jealousy, rage, outside of the light, things don't work out so well. But in the densities, it always worked. Everything worked. But it got down to this fourth and third density.
It was just an experiment that they were just playing to try and create more density.
The purpose of the creator is to create. And so the creator basically, my simpleness grabbed a big piece of itself and said, go create. So when they created, though, this got more dense. And all of a sudden, some of the pieces that were easy to move around in the higher densities weren't so easy to move around in the lower density. And it began to be a problem, literally. And so let's just say the alignments of emotions, anger, rage, resentment, they get in the way of flow and ease and buoyancy. So the game board was created because of this word separation. And what would happen if everything was created outside of oneness with the Creator? Wow, cool. Let's go see what happens. That was it. I mean, the archangelics just say, that was it. We created, or it was created. So now in the process was, can we understand every vibration that's possible that's outside of the love of the Creator? Third dimensional game board. And so now to your question. So over time, those that have paid attention have watched the opportunity to basically end the game. The game has been attempted to be ended 5 times. And every time that it would get to that point, it was recognized that there was more opportunity for separation to be experienced. I'm paraphrasing, making it simple. In 1987, to your question, there was something called the Harmonic Convergence. And in simple terms, it was the question came back up again. Do we kind of rearrange this whole game and go at it one more time? Or do we make an attempt to basically bring it into completion? And the answer was, let's make an attempt to bring it into completion. Massive decision, never made before in the game board. And so starting in 1987, a lot of things changed without trying to go there. And then periodically, year after year after year, we moved closer and moved closer and moved closer. The Y2K event in 2000, some people don't even remember that, but it was about changing time, completely about changing time. If you do know about that, all of the computers were structured to end in 1999, their time cycle. Nobody thought about what do you do after 1999. And all the computers were wired to that, and that was a real problem. But it was really all about changing time into a 4th and 5th dimension, into a different construct of present time. It was successful. Then you got 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then 2008. And now we're starting to drop into physicalness. So you had the massive financial experience in 2008, which was so much bigger than just the financial crashing of the systems. It reconfigured. But the real piece was 2012. And all through the last, those of us who kind of started playing in this game in the 70s were really aware of this time point, 2012. And so in 2012, when it came, we did a conference in particular with about 500 people. And in that conference, Metatron stepped forth, one of the archangelic lords of light, and basically said, as of this moment, there will never be another child born into the 3rd dimensional game. As of this moment, the door on the 3rd dimensional game is closed and the game is over. Now, the challenge is, well, if the game is over, then why are we talking about 3rd dimension? Because you believe the game is still in play. We believe our history, our mom, dad, teacher, minister, our flow, our whole construct of reality is a 3rd dimensional game board. But as 2012 came in, it was like resetting the operating system of a computer. It basically, a brand new operating system was put in place. And it took from 2012 to 2016 for it to start to stabilize and do the things, reprogramming the software. But really in about 2016, the game began to fall apart. The 3D game began to fall apart. And so you saw it, and you see it in my simpleness is there's kind of the red and blue, the liberal conservative, but it's really about the amygdala in the brain. The amygdala has a very specific construct. One part of it wants to group and make sure everything is in its right place and safe. And the other one wants to explore and go and find new opportunities. And so does that sound like today's third dimensional world? One shutting everything down, regrouping, gathering the tribe, and the other one going, no, we have to be respectful and kind and figure out how to do something different. It's the ending of the game. And so we now are at that point where the game is ending. And we are right now, like in this moment, watching the whole transition move from that power over third dimensional game, control, domination, imposition. I have the right answer. You can't do this. We have to do this. Here are the rules. And so you see that jumping up to the surface all over the world right now. 40 countries have just had elections this year, and 28 of them have moved to an authoritative state, and the others are moving closer than pure democracy. And so it's very easy to say, oh, this is bad for those who are playing on the liberal side. But what I can say right here is the game is won. The game is over. What we're doing is just unraveling the backpack so that place where each one of us holds ourselves hostage to doubt and self-judgment, uncertainty. I'm not okay. That has to dissolve. And so as long as I hold the belief that I stole the candy bar and I'm guilty and not okay, I stole the candy bar, I'm guilty and I'm not okay. But in that fourth dimension, what was true a moment ago may not be true in this moment if you allow it. And that sense of buoyancy and ease and allowing is what's beginning to present.
Can we take a moment to double click on creation coming together? Because you said we are creations of the Creator, reflecting back to the Creator what Creator reality really is.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm obsessed with that quote of yours.
Good.
Can you help us unpack it a little bit further? Like, I know you mentioned lightly, like on the different creator beings and putting it all together, but just the nature of Creator wanting to witness more of itself as a fundamental tenet of how this entire thing is being dreamt up. Because I've got questions like, does it get denser than 3D reality? Does it get like down to 2? Does it get down to 1? Does it, or, there's probably even realities that are created that are not even reliant on density as a thing.
So we could answer that a number of ways, but the statement really is you are a reflection of the Creator, reflecting back to the Creator what the Creator is. But in this third dimensional game, we said we're going to step out of that alignment of love and joy and what the Creator is, because that's what the Creator is. We're going to step out of it and we are going to play. Now, in a way, this piece is hard to hear for a lot of people, but how is it that you got to come and play the game of separation? You see, this is where, in real terms, you pushed your way to the front of the line and you said, send me. I want to play at this game. So first, the piece that most cannot hear is you're big, you're significant, and you're important. That's who you are. But it's like, wait, when I look in the mirror, I don't see any of that. Okay, I get that. But that space where you pushed your way to the front of the line, and the Creator was really clear. The Creator kind of smiled and said, all right, let me explain this game to you. You're going to go down there. You're going to put a bag over your head. You're going to forget who I am. You're going to forget who you are. And you're going to wallow around in the darkness with experiences you've never experienced before, and you're going to try to find your way home. And what did you say? You went, hot damn, how deep into that darkness can I go? And the Creator sat back and said, with a smile, knock yourself out. And you said, watch this. And here you are. But see, you forgot all those things. Who I am, who the Creator is. You're beginning to remember. That's that place where you and I started to talk about, that place where there's something more. There's something more. See, everybody listening to this has that sensation. And what they do is they go, right here, there's something more. I know there's more. But when you're playing in the rules and the structures of the mom, dad, teacher, minister, and you have had your imagination kind of dampened significantly, and I don't give you permission, can you see the box that you're in the darkness? And it's very hard to hear you're big, important, and significant. Yeah, look around. I don't have any money. I don't have it together. I'm on my third divorce. People don't like me. Well, there's your backpack talking back to you.
So you mentioned that in 4D, no one's being born. So how is it all being tethered? How are we experiencing everything that we are experiencing? That seems...
So let me just understand your question. You said in 4D?
Yeah, no, sorry. You said there was going to be no more 3D being, like there's no more birth into the 3D is what you mentioned earlier,
right.
which I trying to wrap my head around. Yeah.
See, so here everything that's been said, it's mostly how you think, how you construct thought, how you organize emotions and feelings. None of those have anything to do with physicality, except they create the results into physicality.
Right.
So, did that make sense?
It did, but then from there, like, you're going.
So, physicalness, the chair you sit in, the tree outside the window, the house, that's physical form. It has nothing to do with third dimension or fifth dimension or fourth dimension, other than how I think it into existence, it appears. So the physicalness is what it is. The physicalness of the body, it's an amazing construction. But see, now we get to another place, which is probably for a conversation another day, is what is the electron? What creates physicalness? What is there's an aspect, there's another one of those rays of creation. And the 10th ray, it's called. And what the 10th ray does, it moves things from non-physical to physical, and from physical back to non-physical. So all your thoughts are non-physical. Your feelings, in a way, are non-physical. But the body becomes the repository and the reflector of your thoughts and your feelings. So the physicalness is a construct that you've created, a place to play out the game, and it's going to continue on. It's not the target of, you really want the physicalness in the game, because it's your creative vehicle to have your experience. But there is a lot more that is going on than just this amount of definition that we're giving to physicalness, 3D and 5D.
At this particular juncture in the conversation, I can't help but feel like there's a real invitation to clean up thoughts, intentions, emotions. There's a whole path of, and I'm conscious of using the word purity, probably because, I've meditated on that word at quite length. But also there's a whole, I'd love to get your thoughts on that. And then also I'd like to invite into the conversation at this particular juncture also, mastering alchemy is the cornerstone of your work. And so, what does it mean to master alchemy in the context of energy, vibration, and frequency and everything we're discussing right here at this particular juncture?
Okay, so let's take your word purity and substitute it with alignment. Let's just call it alignment. And so let's just say alignment, when you get into an alignment, then you have a choice of I'm not okay, or you have a choice of joy, happy, excitement. Okay. So when I'm in alignment, I'm in a place where I can choose. Now, purity, the word purity you're using, that's subjective. It's like, whose purity, whose truth, what is purity in a lot of ways. But in this case, when you go into alignment to then be able to choose my outcome and my experience, there is no purity in the context of this where we're having conversation. You came here as a being to reflect back to the Creator what the Creator was. And the Creator is light, joy, love. And you being the creative aspect of the Creator wishes to know itself through your actions. Now, we've had a little side game over here called separation in order to basically say what the Creator is not, in a manner of speaking. And we're right in the middle of it, and that's all we know. Because when we came into this game, we forgot who the Creator, who I was, all of those things. So we don't have this huge reference point consciously that we actually hold in the etheric body, in the higher mind, higher self, the oversoul, the Christed oversoul, the causal body, the soul itself. See, that's all you. But each one of those alignments is kind of in a misalignment with with each other, so that we could play this game in separation from who we are. But what's starting to happen, and so to your question about mastering alchemy is an instructive body of information that was provided by the archangelics over 5 years of information about how to do a lot of the things we've been talking about, how to change the chakra functions from how everybody thinks they know them into different configurations. For example, when you take the 4th chakra, 5th chakra, and thymus center and organize those all to perform in a different functional analysis, you get an enormous body of information available to you to begin to understand love and light and joy and ease, and also information. So one of the things, the chakras do not exist in the physical body. They exist in the etheric body. Well, what's the etheric body? It's what people call the astral bodies, what I go to sleep in. Yeah, but it's so much more than that. And so when you start to make that alignment, all of a sudden the heart starts to function with a vast expansion, beginning to have an awareness of all that is in consciousness. There's another center in the head that's made up of the 6th chakra, the pineal center, and a part of the brain called the medulla oblongata. And when that begins to be reconfigured and in a coherent harmony with the heart, all of a sudden the ability to begin to know yourself very differently starts to take place. And then the third, above the head, the 7th chakra, the 8th chakra, and something called the soul star. The point where the soul, the higher self, the oversoul, the Christed oversoul, talk to you, playing in the body. And so when you begin to have mastering alchemy, it's about talking about all those things. For example, there's something in the head when you realign the 6th chakra, the 7th chakra, and the pineal center into something called the Eye of Horus. See, the Eye of Horus may be a necklace, it may be a mystery school, but when you reorganize that into a different functional analysis, all of your psychic spiritual abilities start to happen in a unit where you begin to know your truth rather than speculate on it. And it's not about the lottery, winning the lottery. It's really about simply being able to pause and start to recognize this unified field of consciousness that you are and how it plays out in this body that you're walking around in. And so, see, now just that part of the conversation takes us very much out of the 3D game board. But the average person, without only understanding what mom, dad, teacher, minister said and following the game and having no permission and not having any imagination playing out. Now, that's not everybody, clearly, but many. All of a sudden, can you see how restricted and pushed off into a corner we've created ourselves? The good news is the game board's changing. But you take that mastering alchemy work and you start to turn it into the light body. The light bodies, everybody has an opinion what they think the light body is, but the light body is an integrated circuitry system that simply puts all of those bodies together and then allows you to move from the physical body as your primary point of interest to the etheric body. Physical body begins to become like the car that moves you around. And why that becomes important, see, in your third dimensional world, when you want to know as a little kid, how does this all work? You look at that person over there and they're angry, and you say, what is that? And that vibration comes over here and hits the body. And you now have an understanding of what an emotion is. We'll call it anger. But what it did is it hit the cells of the physical body, and it now resonates in every single cell of the body as an understanding of a vibration that's disharmonic. Greed, jealousy, resentment. And all of a sudden, you've got a very big encyclopedia of what doesn't work. And you got mom, dad, teacher, minister telling you this is how the game works. But see, when you start to put all those pieces back together, aligning them into that light body and stepping into the etheric body, you now give the permission to the physical body to rest and go into rejuvenation. You put the mental, emotional body, which is not two bodies, it's one, back together to where now you can discern. There's that big word again. I know that is anger, but I don't have to feel it as anger. I can recognize it and not put my finger in that light socket, and I can step aside. I can be in present time. I can be quiet. I can observe. I can let those trains go by, and I can choose how I wish to create my reality. That's what's currently happening in this transition.
What does it look like on the other side? Once we've made it through the transition, how do you feel humanity?
Well, I can explain. Yeah. I can give you some insight into that. And the insight is joy, ease, beauty, laughter, appreciation, gratitude, co-creation, cooperation. That's it. That's it. Fifth dimension. Now, what happens when you start to vibrate in those vibrations, those frequencies, those sensations, a whole nother range of feelings beyond feelings, all of a sudden you begin to use that eye of Horus to see into other realms of consciousness. To know, the better choice, better word is know into other realms of consciousness. Because seeing, hearing, feeling is just one part of this knowing. But then you get into the science, if you would, of spirituality. And I said earlier, beginning to understand what the electron is all about. It's that particle, that 10th ray. See, light is a wavelength and a particle. And the particle is the electron. And the electron is love in physicalness. And then the electron in love and physicalness, when you bring it from a vibrational, coherent frequency with no erratic vibrations, and you bring that particle of love into physicalness, the electron is the foundation of everything about who you are. The electron creates the atom. The atom doesn't create the electron. And you say, I would like to have, there's that expression, I would like. And the electron organizes itself and then organizes other electrons to form that atom, whether it's a piece of metal or it's a joy or whether it's a piece of skin. The electron does that.
And it pulls together neutrons and protons?
Well, the proton and the neutron, or the proton is God. The proton is that center point. See, when you get into excitement, how does that feel? You get elevated and there's joy. See, that's just the electron moving closer and closer to that I am what I am. But once you start to say, I am angry, that electron gets expelled from the love that it is, and it does what you tell it to do because that's its job. You are the creator reflecting back to the creator. Law of attraction says you're the creator. What do you want? Well, I want more anger. Well, the electron starts to diminish, but it vibrates in anger. And if you live your life in anger and resentment and rage and I'm not okay, that electron just moves farther and farther apart. And in some people's lives, that's all they can focus on is what they are not. And the electrons dissipate and the heart dissipates and the cells begin to move into dis-ease. And then the hyphen goes away and it's disease. So mechanical. And yet we're so fixated on the game board. Now you know why the game board's coming to an end.
Hi there, guys. I wanted to take a quick moment just to introduce you to my one-to-one coaching. It's something that I deeply love doing. As you can tell, conscious conversation is such a massive part of my life. And having one-to-one, deep, meaningful conversations with people where I get to show up as your brother or as the coach or as your mentor has been such a gift for me personally and a gift for lots of the people that I have supported on the journey of living a more spiritually empowered, spiritually powered, spiritually aligned life. You don't have to take my word for it. Here's some examples of people all around the world that have experienced profound transformations through this coaching experience.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines.
He's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing, and Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
In control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate because you won't be disappointed.
Alrighty, so hopefully that's inspiring your evolution onwards and upwards. And if you are so inspired to evolve, you can book in a one-to-one call with me directly at www.amrit.coach/life. And guys, if I can say so myself, I do think this is something quite special. Most people that I see building things online don't really work with people this deeply, this intimately, one-on-one as things start to grow, just because it is so time intensive. And yet I'm so deeply passionate about the transformation that comes from one-to-one coaching that just isn't available anywhere else. It would be my absolute honor and a pleasure to support your spiritual awakening, your spiritual path, your spiritual unfoldment. It is my life's work. I look forward to seeing you in the call. Back to today's podcast. So interesting, because also I couldn't help but draw the reflection. It was only like about 5 or 6 years ago that I picked up an old chemistry textbook of mine, and I was like, and I just started Googling the atom and having a look at it, and the model hasn't. Well, the model's changed. The model's not changed, but it has changed. It used to be, when I was studying it, that you had the nucleus, you had the proton and the neutron sort of hanging out in the nucleus, and you had these fixed orbits in which the electrons sort of hung out at and they were like all trying to like. And then recently I was like, oh no, there's no fixed orbit for the electron. It's just a field of potential, and it could be at any given point it could be anywhere. It's your observation makes it so. At that particular moment it's like in this cloud. And I was like, wait, what? Like I learned something not very different, but fundamentally different about the location of the electron and how it was behaving. And it was probably around, maybe I'm conflating bits of information in my mind, around the 2012 that it started to shift. And interestingly, at this conversation, I can't help but feel like what you're describing in terms of, things being much more fixed as opposed to our potentiality now opening up more and more, and something as fundamental as how we view the atom also kind of going through its shift in the zeitgeist to reflect the shifts that are coming up ahead.
Mm-hmm. But see, both are true. The orderliness, it's when the creator basically said, I want to know more of myself. Now, that's a conversation with the archangelics that has been long in the making and is an amazing conversation. But basically, the creator's first impulse, according to the archangelics, was love and orderliness. Now, orderliness doesn't mean control, doesn't mean you have to be in the right place from a third dimensional point of view, but it basically was orderliness. You see, everything is in its place other than the third dimensional game. The angelic realm and all the other realms, they have tasks. Let's call them tasks for lack of better definition. They love what they do. They are in a place, they do their job, my simpleness explaining it, and they love what they do because they're in love. And there is an excitement, no matter if it's sweeping the floor, they are in love with what they do. But so when the orderliness came about, those electron orbits that we learned about, they're correct. The fields are correct. So all you're doing is getting an expanded piece of information, not an either or piece of information. See, there's the duality of the third dimension. We go right to, well, that's wrong and this is right. And you're wrong and I'm right. And then you're in this whole contest when in fact, it gets really exciting when you back off, very different piece of information for another day. When the creator, central sun, basically created nebulas and threw them out, because that's how things work, all those nebulas became suns, the sons of the creator. Now, but does that sound like religion? And can I take that sun and change it into a different definition? But let's just stay with physical suns. And then those suns would produce nebulas. And what happens is that nebula gets kind of thrown out into, the nebula begins to cool and the dust begins to form and you begin to get planets. And as that planet gets to a certain place, the sun kicks it into the first orbit, the incubational orbit. Every single sun does the same thing. And a planet gets formed. And then there's another nebula. And when the nebula gets hard, it kicks it into the incubational orbit, but the first planet gets knocked out into the next orbit. And it goes on for 8 orbits. And all of those planets are conscious. And on those games of consciousness, that's like infinite amount of knowledge that's just sitting right there. So see that my point here is not to confuse or overwhelm. There's just so much more than that third dimension. Am I okay? Am I not okay? And then many of us that are sitting here in these kind of podcasts are listening to really good information. It's and information. It's not but information. Start to hear it as and, expanding, opening up, possibilities, things that I don't have a box for, so I'm not going to throw them out. I'm just going to let them be interesting. Because you're getting, on these podcasts that are being presented now, really a lot of information from people. And it's filling in the blanks in your consciousness.
And I think you mentioned a couple of things throughout today's podcast in particular, and I wrote them down as power codes. I'm not sure if that was what I was meant to write them down as, but imagination being one of them, permission being another one, You didn't mention intention. I wrote it down for myself, and the word dissolve also came up for me that I wrote down for myself. One word that you did mention was discernment. I'm not sure if you call them power codes. It's just how my mind works. But yeah, the discernment is what you're alluding to right here as well.
Yeah. See, once you begin to get into your own alignment, fourth layer of thought. Oh, no, wait, sorry. It's another whole configuration. But that fourth dimension of thought, choice, dualities, you begin to have the paradox. You begin to recognize I have choice. That's where a lot of this happens. But there is one word that I haven't mentioned, and that is allowing. An enormous word. I can allow you to be who you are, and I can allow me to be who I am. And it's in that allowing that the fascination of the possibilities begin to present without the conflict of duality and right and wrong. And so, but those words are big words. Words are important. Words are sound tones. They're utterances of sound, and they have vibrations to them. And when you basically combine the sound with a feeling and a sensation of joy or ease or beauty, all of a sudden the electrons move to the core of the creator and you as one. And that begins to be that excitement versus doubt and inconsiderations and inconsistencies.
A couple of things come up. Thank you for sharing, because allowing has seemed to be a bit of a theme recently as we're stepping out of 2024 into 2025 and maybe even then beyond. It's interesting because I was going to ask this question earlier. There's been moments in my life where I've had the opportunity to break through into something that's like uplifting. But at a visceral choice point, I've actually chosen to stay with the fear that I know. It's almost like rather the devil that I know than the angel that I don't, And I'm not proud to have made those decisions, but they've been very illuminating for just how much of a hold fear can have on an individual. Even as you mentioned the word allowing, I noticed that for some people, like feeling it, it's like, what am I allowing it? Like there's an inherent, it's such a divine path, and yet there is so much opportunity for fear on that. And so my question initially was going to be, now it's dressed around the word allowing, but my question was initially going to be for those people like looking to embrace the shift that you've been sharing through today's podcast. How do they uncouple themselves from that fear when they hear everything that they're inspired, they're ready to evolve, they're ready to move into that space, to unpack the backpack, like it's already effervescing. And in many ways, you could probably argue that it's already going to happen whether you like it or not, all your stuff's getting cleared out. But how do they ease the transition and not cling onto the old stuff, which, is what they know?
Well, in one way, ask a better question. And maybe the better question is, whose fear is this? Because see, when you shift it around and you begin to ask the question, whose belief is this? Whose fear is this? Whose idea is this? Mom, dad, teacher, minister, and your best friend. Or religions and governments begin to pop up. So you're back into 3D, and here's all the rules and the game and structure. But see, here you asked about mastering alchemy, and here's the whole, this level 1, level 2, which are the beginning pieces, are really simple, are packed with tools. And the question is, whose fear is this? And what if you could basically pause and then allow yourself to answer the question? And you say, well, this is how my mother did her life. My father, my teacher, my principal or my school said, this is what I have to do. And I said, okay. And it wasn't my truth. See, fear is simply not your truth. But if you, being genuine, if you stop and say, whose idea was this? You will instantly have a memory that will come up. Oh yeah, I did this when I was 7, or I did this, or my husband, wife told me I had to do this. Their fear. You simply absorb fear. One of the really valuable concepts, and it's virtually the first tools of mastering alchemy, is where do you start and stop? Now, there is no start and stop, so that's a false question or false answer. But for the purpose of this, If you were to stick your arm straight out in front of you and turn your palm towards you, that is approximately where the edge of your aura exists. And it goes all the way around you. But when you look at somebody doing something or somebody's yelling at you, let's take that one, there is no starting and stopping. Their yelling winds up right in your space. Have you ever been knocked out of your space because you were scolded or yelled at? Answer is yes. So whose thought, whose feeling, whose belief is this resonates in that's where it comes from. But what if we use a concept of a rose, just to make it really simple. Just create a little red rose in your imagination. Stick your arm straight out in front of you and hold a red rose right there. And then take a breath and be in present time, be right here, and just pull your energy, your attention back to the center of your head. I'm observing the rose right out there from the center of my head. And breathe. People stop breathing right here. And then make a decision that everything from that rose to my heart is me or my stuff to play with. And everything on the other side is Shakespeare's theater to entertain me. Now, just kind of play it out, hear it from a value standpoint. If all that yelling that never had any defense to it just comes right into my space, and I can put this rose up, and it's not a wall, it's not a protect, it's not a keep out, it's not a punishment, it's just simply a point of delineation. Everything on the other side is there for me to observe, discern, choose, or not. If you can allow that concept just to play it out and know that rose goes all the way around you, and you can play the game. It's in one of the places is go to the grocery store, talk to the checker on your checkout, put the rose up and stand on your side and talk to him on their side. The conversation is immaterial. You're just basically allowing them to be over there. There's that word allowing, while you allow you to be over here. Your world will change because you have no filters that discern, is that my anger, rage, resentment, my belief, my truth, or the world's? That concept is free at masteringalchemy.com. Free. A number of others. We have lots of free things. We give away stuff because it's how you begin to figure out who you are. Level 1, level 2 is all about how do you basically clear out that belief that's not mine out of my space.
I'll put a link to Mastering Alchemy in the show notes below for everyone to go dive in deeper into Jim's work for sure. One last little, not so little question, Jim, which will keep me up at night if I don't ask it, is you mentioned love and orderliness. I've always viewed it as love and freedom. And it's interesting because freedom and orderliness sort of seem at odds from this 3D duality kind of space. Sure. Can you help me just reconcile that so I'm not up chewing the nub all night? Yeah.
So let's call orderliness things in their place. Now, can you move things to another place? Absolutely. But basically, you know that if you kind of put your dishes away and your silverware and your glasses away and you kind of clean off the surface, that feels good. You know, that's pleasant, that's comfortable. And you can go in and use it again for another purpose. You can do all your art projects on it. It's the orderliness of not putting your dishes and your dirty spoons and your art project all together and then having them all sitting there trying to work through them in order to eat your lunch. So orderliness is not control or domination. Orderliness is just the ease of the flow where everything moves in symmetries. And in those symmetries, the symmetry of love simply allows everything to constantly do what it wants to do, which is vibrate into the next level of both orderliness and vibrational joy. And so there's no restrictions, there's no conditions, third dimension. There's no limitations. It's simply, how do you enjoy and then be creative in your own creativity, your imagination, your passion to step into the next level of your growth? And then there's another table right over there that becomes instantly available. You see, one of the pieces we haven't talked about is in that third dimensional game, I have to go to them to get approval that I'm okay. But in the game that we're talking about here, everything rotates around you and comes to you. You don't go to your wanting. Your wanting comes to you. And it's effortless. And it's simple. But again, simple sometimes is not easy because yes, but what about this? And all we do is revert into our past knowing and step back into our past to try to get a clearer understanding of our future without allowing the joy to draw the creation to you. And that's the transformation we're in.
Jim Self. Oh man. Thank you so much for this podcast. My goodness, such a treasure trove. I am so grateful for your time and energy here today. And not but and this is not just, today's conversation, this sharing, this transmission, this podcast is built on the shoulders of your life's explorations and work, and probably then some. So thank you so much for you doing what you're doing. Mastering Alchemy has been something you've been championing for so long. This is your life's work. So thank you for, today's podcast, but also thank you for your life's work and how you continue to show up for all of us and making so many of these tools accessible. I'll put links in the show notes below, but deeply, thank you for you. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Blessings. This is your movie. You are the lead actor. And everything else is your sub-actors, the props, the staging, the backdrop.
Yeah.
And so when you can allow and your whole intention is have a great adventure. That's the game. And so, but what happens is there are a lot of noisy movies out there that are similar but not the same. And they are loud and abusive in a lot of ways, let's just say, and they're not your movie. So you can basically, literally put your arm out and just turn your palm and then look at the world on the other side of it and bring your attention back into the center of your head, which is a big deal why I say it's a big deal is because the mom, dad, teacher, minister live in everybody's center of their head. This is what you do. This is right. Do what I say. Boom, right in the center of your head. But if you can begin to allow that to be everybody else's movie and the backdrops for you to draw from, rather than no boundary and no discernment. See, that's why that word discernment begins to be so valuable. That's really fascinating, but it's not my fascinating.
Profound.
This is a huge piece because you can't answer the question, whose fear, whose idea, whose belief this is, when there's no point of delineation that determines, is it your vibration or is it somebody else's similar vibration?
Yeah. And
then you begin to build like the creator gods did. They built on these erratic vibrations, and it all worked in let's just say the 5th, 6th, 7th dimensions. But once you got down to a greater density, it didn't work.
Yeah. You inspired soul, you made it through to the end of another incredible episode. Thank you so much for your incredible inspirations to evolve. It is such an honor to be your brother walking this path by your side, inspired to evolve together. Thank you to all of you that are subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for your incredible love and support. Like I say, everything around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to this channel. And again, to all of you that haven't yet taken the time to subscribe, it just takes a quick sec. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon. Everything you see around here is a total labor of love, and thanks to your subscription, it is powered. Thank you so much for your incredible love and support in advance. Now, to inspire your evolution onwards, upwards, and inwards even deeper and even further, on screen now, an episode with Sarah Acaldi, also known as The Alchemist, diving deep into the occult. Also, William Whitecloud has an approach into Hermetic wisdom, famously known for the occult as well. And another episode on screen now for you to continue your inspirations in this similar vein that we unpacked with Jim Self today. So go on, make your pick, take your pick, make your click. Take your pick, make a click, and I will see you in the next one. Go on, I'll see you there after all of that.